into the skull with pleasure. And I sent him this NPR article, NPR, and he just laughed. Man, it's funny. I mean, it's funny that they're this psychotic guild out enjoying itself, having its way with everyone. And the New Freedom Initiative wants to drug half of the school children in America. I mean, that came out in mainstream news, and I would bring that up, and he would just laugh. I mean, it's not funny. And I don't think they realize their mind games aren't working with us anymore, Wayne.
No, definitely not. And I think, that's why I think what we're seeing now, stuff come out of the White House talking about shutting down the Internet if there's a national emergency. Obviously, there's no interest in having information available when you've got people like this with their agendas running the show.
Well, Wayne, let's get into some other issues here. I digress. It's just what do you call it where the mainstream media will say we're setting up a world government to be run by private banks, and it's going to be a planetary regime, and we're going to drug your water, and then we read it, and then they write articles saying we're insane, it doesn't exist, in sometimes the same publications a month later. What, I mean, is that double speak, double think? I mean, what is that?
Well, I think it's just a Hegelian approach to creating conflict, creating chaos, constant chaos. When you have constant chaos, of course, people can take advantage of that situation, and we've seen it happen time and time again. I'm actually sitting across from the CBS News Bureau here in Washington right now. That's why you're hearing the traffic noise. But, I mean, if you talk to these journalists individually, those who are left who haven't been laid off with this downturn in the economy and this extreme change in how news is covered in the United States, you talk to them individually, they know these things, but they'll never get it through the producers and the editors to get it on the air on the major news networks.
Yeah, all that's left now is a really seedy guild of mercenary media people who will just do whatever they're told. And
that's right.
And I think that's only going to accelerate the discrediting of them quicker, because these are such lazy hit pieces they do on the freedom movement. I mean, don't they understand this is only confirming to everyone just how scum-filled they are?
Well, I think it gets to this whole idea of the elitism with you've got all the major networks now controlled by big corporations, and it's this ivory tower approach. I cover the news inside the Beltway, but the term inside the Beltway has always been used to describe this sort of incestuous relationship that politicians, journalists, and others, what they call quote unquote movers and shakers, have in this town. And obviously, if you're reading from something that isn't part of the official script, you're always criticized and made fun of and intimidated.
Well, I'm also seeing this drumbeat against myself and other activists that we're violent and we're calling for violence, even though I'm calling for the opposite. That's in Psychology Today. Within hours of Poplawski doing what he did, the Southern Poverty Law Center said it was my fault. I've got some of the Soros people now coming out and saying Obama is not calling for national service and I'm a dangerous liar. Why am I, because I know this happens to you too, but I mean, really, it's happening bad now. And I'm wondering if in your expertise, you think they're building up to something. Because in my experience, they demonize you just to demonize you and discredit you, or they demonize you in preparation for something else. And I hope that's not what it is. False charges, my murder, whatever the case may be. And whatever the case is, I'm ready for it, and this is the path I'm on, and it's an honor to fight these people. But why do you think they're really coming after me right now?
Well, as I say, we've always had an element of this in the past where journalists who didn't fall into line were criticized, and certainly Jack Anderson faced a lot of that criticism. I.F. Stone, as he Stone, faced that criticism, and others. But now we're seeing with this conglomeration of the media, the corporate media having a lot more power to demonize those who basically call them out on how they cover these stories. And certainly we see that time and time again. And as you say, months later, for example, NBC Dateline is reporting that the vaccines, all vaccines, may not be safe. They featured this man, Dr. Wakefield, who has been criticized by his peers, who said, look, these vaccines have to be looked at. I haven't done all the research, but the research should be conducted, and we should have, an independent verification by professionals as to whether these vaccines are in fact safe.
Well, that's the thing, is they're now admitting Gardasil's killing a bunch of people, and that in flu vaccine trials in Europe, it's killed a bunch of people. I got that wrong and flipped it to Texas. They were worried in Texas, but the deaths are in Europe. We showed those articles. I'm just wondering where all this is going, because there seems to be a crisis in confidence, and instead of the establishment being more truthful, they're now more and more just intensifying the lying, or they're talking out of both sides of their mouths, almost like they're committing suicide politically in front of us.
Well, as I say, the proof will be in the pudding. If the people who are suggesting that we all take the vaccine for H1N1, if they really feel that way, let's see them be the first in line when these vaccines are available and are being administered. Let's see whether Schwarzenegger is the first one to get the vaccine in Sacramento, and whether President Obama is on camera showing him getting it, and his family. But if we don't see that, obviously, we're not going to believe politicians, especially when your health, your very life may be at risk.
Well, Wayne, I don't believe anything they say. They could take a shot of saline solution. They've been caught doing similar stunts in the past. I believe nothing they say, and I think that's what the establishment hasn't quite yet figured out. And the longer it takes for them to figure it out, the better, because, if they get more sophisticated, they'll be harder to beat. Just their bald-faced lying about everything is really helping us awaken everybody. But shifting gears, I got to toot your horn again. That's why I really respect you, Wayne Madsen. And by the way, you're in the upcoming film Fall of the Republic with Max Kaiser and many others. I remember, it's like you have the knowledge. You forget everywhere you saw it unless you go Google it and pull it up. But I remember Cy Hirsch, you, other people, Ray McGovern, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And then you really in the last year especially saying, look, Blackwater's running hit teams, Delta Force is involved, they're killing political enemies. Then I tied that into UPI, AP, Jerusalem Post, 2003, Israel bragging, we got hit teams even in America. So a lot of this is from the hit teams themselves. And then Merck putting out in federal documents that they have hit teams, quote, liquidating doctors in a seek and destroy program. And then Merck says, oh, that's just a joke we give to these, these mercenaries. You were one of the first people to break this. A, what was your intel on that, if you can tell us? And then B, it appears we just uncovered like the very tip of the iceberg, and it's this huge archipelago or constellation of murder gangs. And I was watching congressional hearings yesterday with all this starting to come out. I mean, my God, it looks like it was worse than we even thought.
I'll tell you one thing that surprised me. I never thought that Blackwater was as close to the CIA as we now know it was, that they got these sole source contracts to, first of all, engage in covert actions around the world, that they were using foreign mercenaries to conduct targeted assassinations, and they were using U.S. Retired U.S. military personnel to do the same thing. The reason I say that is because we were told that there was a major difference of opinion between Donald Rumsfeld when he was Secretary of Defense and the person in charge of the Counterterrorism Center at CIA, Cofer Black, who, by the way, then went after stint at the State Department, he went to work for Blackwater's intelligence gathering arm, for Total Information Systems. Now we see with Buzzy Krongard, the executive director at the CIA, leaves the CIA and winds up on the advisory board for Blackwater. His brother, Cookie Krongard, is the inspector general for the State Department, basically covering up all the Blackwater contracts and the malfeasance at State. We know that other CIA officials went to work for Blackwater. I guess the biggest surprise was the initial reports were that there was this schism between the Pentagon and the CIA, but now we know that that was probably just a mere turf battle, had nothing to do with the use of Blackwater whatsoever.
So how much murdering is going on? Because they admit it was Cheney's enemies, not just, quote, Al-Qaeda. I mean, who are they killing?
Well, when I first heard about George Tenet's attack matrix, worldwide attack matrix, I was looking, and I was told by sources close to the CIA that they said, look, it's not just in Iraq and Yemen and Afghanistan are targeting people. They told me about politicians in Lebanon being targeted, people with various human rights movements and secessionist movements from Indonesia to Colombia also being targeted. So this, in fact, was what Tenet told all the members of the cabinet and President Bush's senior advisors at Camp David just a few days after 9/11.